So let's move on to the next tenet of their belief. They basically believe that studies show that the other races that are non-white have lower IQs than white people. Now, some alt-rights will make exceptions and say that Asians are smarter than white people, but they basically harp on this IQ argument and say that whites all across the globe have higher IQs than non-whites all across the globe. Now, you see, here's the problem about this. Number one, does the IQ measure every type of intelligence that there is? Probably not. Number two, a lot of these studies that they're deriving from, they are not taking into consideration, are you comparing people who grew up in like environments? For example, are you comparing the IQ of someone who grew up in the inner city in this country with someone who grew up in the inner city in that country, or are they making mismatched comparisons? You see, a lot of these people who think they're so smart, like, I don't know, what is the guy's name? Richard Spencer or something like that. He's like one of the notable leaders in the alt-right movement. They don't actually understand how to dissect statistics and data, folks. They're not comparing people in like conditions. They're not comparing people that come from comparable family structures. They may not even be comparing people that come from similar socioeconomic statuses. There's so much more than just numbers on a paper when you look at statistics. You have to look at what is being compared, how it's being compared, when it was compared. Not only that, but you also have to look at how much of it was compared. If you have a small sample size here and you're comparing it to a large sample size over there, obviously you're going to get a lower standard deviation when you get a larger sample size because it's going to normalize. It's going to normalize out. So the thing is, you have to make sure that you actually understand what you're looking at when you look at statistics. For example, if you look in the United States, for example, test scores are a lot lower in certain areas among African Americans than they are among whites. And you might take that on face value and just say, see, that means black people are less intelligent than white people. But then when you understand and do further study and look and see that coming from a broken home increases your chances of failing academically, and then you look at the fact that 70% of African Americans come from broken homes, meanwhile only 30% of whites come from broken homes, you come to understand that the failing is not in the intelligence of black people, it's in their family structure. So if black people as a whole were to rectify their family structure, they would perform a lot more strongly. And that is why I always tell young people, do not sleep around before you are married. Save it for marriage, because you want to give your children the best chance of success. And if you bring up your children in a broken home, you are all but setting them up for failure. It matters the choices you make. What matters, folks, is choices, not color. And that is what the alt-right fails to understand. They need to understand that success and failure are based upon your choices and your culture, not your color. Those are separate issues.